our entrance desk every Sunday passed peacefully. She leaves a legacy of gentle joy and deep commitment to our community and to social justice. Please join us in some moments of silence for this beautiful soul. In today's turbulent and divisive times, Dr. Leonard McMahon, our speaker next week from the Pacific School of Religion, will show us how to move from toxic discord to productive disagreement. And this morning, we are honored to welcome Mayor Mark Stapp as our speaker to discuss his vision for Santa Rosa amidst a myriad of challenges. Dr. Stapp, who also serves as Senior Director of Corporate and Foundation Relations at Sonoma State University, brings a Renaissance background to his role of mayor, including educator, system analyst, and volunteer worker with the youth and the incarcerated, including playing basketball in San Quentin. Starting with his bachelor's at Williams College, through to his PhD at the University of Chicago, he is steeped in the works of Kierkegaard, St. Augustine, Plato, and Aristotle, among other great philosophers and theologians. He brings a unique and moral perspective, which is sadly often missing in governance today. Please welcome Mayor Mark Stapp.
There we go. We're good. Jeff, is it working? All right. Gabriel, thank you for the most flowery introduction it is possible to imagine. My Augustine would be a little shaky, as is my Aristotle, but thank you nonetheless. I have been looking forward to being back here. This is the third time that I've had a chance to speak here, and as Gabriel hinted, the first time it was talking about Kierkegaard and Silicon Valley, and then we moved on to prison basketball and reentry programs here in Sonoma. And now we're talking about what's going on in the city of Santa Rosa. And with that, we will have exhausted all of my areas of expertise. But I am so glad to be back here today. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Judy. Thanks for giving me and the city of Santa Rosa to talk a bit about what we have going on, particularly in 2026. It is an overused phrase to say that a city or an entity, an organization is at a critical juncture, it's at an inflection point, what have you. But it's fair to say that about Santa Rosa in 2026. We have a really interesting year guaranteed in front of us. From the federal level on down to what's going on here, we are suddenly in the spotlight in a number of ways, mostly good, but some challenges. As an example of how the spotlight's changed for Santa Rosa, how many of you were involved with the Prop 50 campaign, the redistricting campaign in California? I figured I'd see a few hands here. So what city is the linchpin of California's effort to redistrict with massive federal repercussions? Santa Rosa. About 70% of the votes that Mike McGuire requires or is hunting for in this newly redistricted space come from Santa Rosa and the areas just outside. So we're in the national spotlight, and the New York Times is talking about us, and I'm eagerly waiting for them to call me up so that I can get a quote in the New York Times so that my mother can read it. I've got it all ready. And then even at a regional level, how many of you saw the San Francisco Chronicle article just a couple of weeks ago talking about, front page article, talking about Santa Rosa as the new retail mecca in the Bay Area? How many of you saw that piece? Good. Exactly. I hear skepticism. I hear skepticism already in the front row, and we're going to address that. All right, but we are on the map locally, and in some ways, people who live in Santa Rosa are the last ones to notice it. So the reaction's not it is not uncommon because how do we think of ourselves here? We are a small, sleepy town, right? We like our bucolic countryside. We have our wineries and our ag industry. We have our somewhat sleepy downtown, and we all know each other and we like it. Because of that, one of the things that I've started doing when I'm out talking in public is to get a sense of how many people realize where we really stand in the Bay Area. So let's start with a trivia question. And if you've heard me do this before, refrain from the answer. Some genuine feedback about who realizes this. So the Bay Area consists of 9 counties and 101 cities, all the way from Cloverdale, little Cloverdale up north, all the way down to Gilroy in the south, over to Livermore in the east. It includes the major cities like San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, 101 cities total. So who can tell me where Santa Rosa, sleepy little Santa Rosa, ranks out of the 101 Bay Area cities in terms of population? Population, where does Santa Rosa rank in terms of population out of the 101 cities? Wait, poof. Wait, I'm hearing it. Fifth. Fifth. I know. The skeptics in the front row. There's going to be more surprises to come. All right, let's walk through the top 5. What's number 1? San Jose. Number 2, San Francisco. Number 3, Oakland. Number 4, no. Fremont. Who would ever guess Fremont? Then after those 4, you hit Santa Rosa, right? And the next city I think is Santa Clara. I'll look to my Santa Rosa city counterpart. Is it Santa Clara, Joe? You start hitting Santa Clara. I forget how the list goes on for there. But when you think of when we live here in Sonoma County, in our sleepy little city, we think of ourselves like a collection of Italian city-states, right? We look to our peers and it's what's Petaluma doing? Oh, those folks up in Healdsburg, they've got such great stuff going on. But those aren't our peers. Our peers are Santa Clara, Fremont, Cupertino, Walnut Creek, right? We're 180,000 people. What's Healdsburg's population? 12,000 people. Do you know how many times people come up to me and tell me about downtown Healdsburg? And what the folks in Petaluma have going on? Which is great. They have great stuff going on, and they should be our model in certain ways, but they are not our peer cities, and that's not the direction that Santa Rosa is headed. We are we are becoming a large urban region with all of the urban challenges and opportunities. We have opportunities that those other cities don't have because of our population, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So back to the idea that 2026 is an inflection point. We're on the map for various political reasons, which is great. We're also on the map because of some of the economic development opportunities that we have going right now. Companies across, we're going to get into this in a second, but companies across the country have realized that, wait, there's a lot of folks in Santa Rosa and in the area right around Santa Rosa. Another stat to keep in the back of your mind. On weekdays in Santa Rosa, within a 15-minute drive of downtown, so Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, within a 15-minute drive from downtown Santa Rosa, sleepy little downtown Santa Rosa, how many people are there? 300,000. Would you believe that? All right. So I've already had multiple people coming up and talking to me about parking in downtown Santa Rosa. Does that stat all on its own put the parking discussion in downtown Santa Rosa into a bit of into more context? All right. We just have a different situation here than we're used to thinking about. We are coming to grips as a community with the fact that we are bigger than we think we are or expected to be, and that's playing into all the political discussions that we're having in ways, again, both good and bad. So in 2026, here's what I'm mostly going to be talking about today, and we're going to go through this pretty quickly, and then we're going to open up to Q&A because I know people have a lot of questions they want to ask about the city. So I'm really going to focus on 2 different subject areas, both financially related. One, I'm going to talk about the great economic development opportunities that are already underway, some of which you'll have noticed, more of which you'll definitely notice in 2026, and the opportunities this presents and how we're going to keep this great momentum going. And then, as the title of the talk indicated, we're going to talk a little bit about the budget challenges that Santa Rosa has. Santa Rosa, like frankly, most of the other cities in California and most of the other cities in Sonoma County, we've got some budget headwinds. And I want to make sure that the city wants to make sure you're in the loop on those, because those are definitely going to impact our conversation. And we're going to talk about how those two interrelate. So with that, let's move on. Budget stats. In fact, let's go back to sleepy little Santa Rosa. Yes, who here knew that Santa Rosa's budget was over $500 million? A few of you did. Yes, there are a few geeks who come to the council meetings. All right. Here's another. Who can guess what the staff size is for the city of Santa Rosa? How many employees does the city have? Shout out on a little longer. I heard 200. There we go, 1,300. Sleepy Santa Rosa is a $500 million, 1,300 employee organization. That's what it takes to run a city the size of 180,000 people. When I couldn't come up, in fact, let me go back to my previous slide. I think I can do that. I could not come up with a title as good as I think Judy and Jeff and Gabriel came up for the brochure, where I think it was from fire to fiscal crises. There was great alliteration. That was better. That was better than this title. I just went with a Darwin or with a Dickens illusion. Because we've got back to the city budget, our general fund budget. When you read in the paper that the city of Santa Rosa is having budget problems, what you're reading about there is our general fund budget that covers our public safety operations, it covers our parks maintenance, it covers just the daily operations for a lot of the services that touch our residents. We also have a capital improvement program budget, these are funds earmarked, dedicated to various capital projects in the city. That budget is going a very different direction than our general fund budget, with the result being that Santa Rosa is building right now. I think that the title is covered at the top, but the point of this slide is that Santa Rosa, what you're going to see in 2026, what you're already seeing, and what you're going to see for the next few years, is a lot of capital projects underway. You've already noticed the Hearn Avenue Bridge, right? You've noticed a lot of street work, especially in the city. Thanks to you in this room and other voters, Santa Rosa has a couple million extra dollars per year to finally start catching up on our street maintenance, because we underfunded that for decades. Everybody knows that the streets are not where we want them to be, but we're starting to correct that. So we're building bridges, we're building streets, we're creating new parks, we're doing a better job with some of our parks maintenance. You're going to see more of that going. When you're driving around Santa Rosa, even as you're reading some of the negative headlines about the regular budget, you will see great things going on. We are also, as you've noticed, who's been to Montgomery Village recently? Who likes the changes in Montgomery Village? Mostly the same? Good. Occasionally I hear some folks who they like it a little sleepier, but Montgomery Village is going gangbusters, and you're noticing the kinds of brands that are coming here. Good ones. Younger, national. All right. That's probably true too. All right. Speaking, this is continuing that theme of good momentum happening. We're on the radar screen. Santa Rosa and Santa Rosa's population is recognized nationally. The city knows this because we spun up an economic development group a couple of years ago. We're now going to national conferences, sometimes in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. We're talking to the national brands at national conferences, and they're coming up to us saying, Santa Rosa, we want to come to Santa Rosa. We want to open multiple stores in Santa Rosa. You guys have the population to support our business. We want to be there. Can the city help us? Those are the conversations that the city is having right now, along with our local chamber, that we want to keep that economic momentum going. And then in terms of housing development, you've seen downtown, you've seen the 8-story Felix apartment complex, which is really Santa Rosa's first higher end apartment complex, again, getting Chronicle coverage. I hope a few of you saw that article in the Chronicle. National developers are coming here And we have Jill Scott, who is our director of development for the city. She's taking the calls. People that weren't looking to build in Santa Rosa a few years ago, they're calling us up now and they're responding to our RFPs and they're saying, how do we get there? Because you have the kind of constituency that we want for our projects. So if you look downtown, I won't go through the sites. We've got a number of sites in development right now. The mall that bisects, unfortunately, our downtown, that ownership group is re-engaged. So you're seeing talk of PF Chang's, Dave and Buster's. They're going to be redoing the former Sears site to be mixed use residential commercial. There's just a lot of good stuff happening downtown. Let me flip over here. Back to capital improvement projects for a second. I'm going to let you just scan this quickly. I left this slide is messy and hard to read, and I left it that way intentionally. Because it doesn't matter to me that you remember all of the projects listed. What matters to the city is that you have a sense of how many are coming. So whether it's building additional bridges like the bicycle pedestrian overcrossing, that's a $40+ million project right next to the JC dorms. We're talking the Southeast Santa Rosa Greenway, which affects this area because that's going to be this area's connection to the bike paths over in West County. You're going to be able to eventually drive your bike right from Oakmont all the way over to West County. Plus all the road work, including here in Oakmont, I highlighted that. In the year to come, just the first 6 months actually of the coming year, $125 million in capital improvement projects in the city, on top of the tens of millions of projects that we completed in 2025. So Santa Rosa's building with the public dollars. That's that capital improvement budget we talked about. And then back to the firms coming here. I just threw up a few of the national brands that are coming here. When I was at the Southwest Airline ribbon cutting for their flights a few months ago. At the ribbon cutting, the COO of Southwest Airlines stood at the podium and he said, the reason that we're here in Santa Rosa and the reason that we're here in Sonoma County is because this is their last large underserved market in California. They're committed to being here. The reason that Waymo is coming up here, the reason that the United Soccer League is looking at this area is that they do not see us as a sleepy farm town. They see us as a collection of a lot of people with good income, and they want to be here serving us. And this trend should continue, and we want to encourage this trend to continue. In terms of housing, these are stats that I hope many of you know. Santa Rosa was, I believe, the 4th city in the state to be awarded the pro housing designation. Santa Rosa, sometimes to the chagrin of residents, Santa Rosa is doing a great job of building homes. All right, you see the cranes going up. You see the housing units that were created. We have 2,400 units in progress right now. Just in the downtown core, we added over 1,000 units in the last few years. We are one of the few cities in the state to be on track to meet our state mandated housing goals. And back to Santa Rosa's role in the regional economy. Why is it? Why is it that housing is so important here? Well, when you look at Healdsburg and you look at Petaluma and you look at the town of Sonoma, the workers that those cities need. I'll pick on Healdsburg in particular. I love Healdsburg. The Healdsburg is a city of 12,000 people. They have a vibrant tourism scene. They've got the restaurants, they've got the hotels, etc. Where do those workers live? Do they live in Healdsburg? No, they live in Santa Rosa, right? And Santa Rosa needs workers for our own housing. We've got a very robust economy here in some ways. We have a manufacturing scene. We've got a lot of healthcare. We've got strong education, including both Santa Rosa Junior College and Sonoma State, where I work. It's not technically in the city limits, but where do the Sonoma State students and faculty live? They live in Santa Rosa. So we need the housing here to support our own economy, and we're building it. I'm sure this will come up during Q&A. It comes up everywhere. We're building all this housing, but do we have the water? What about the traffic, et cetera? Yes, we've got the water. We can cover that in Q&A if the question comes up. And we can talk about traffic as well. That's a trickier conversation because as we grow, we're going to have more of the urban issues, right? And many of us, my wife and I, we moved here from San Francisco where we lived for 10 years. Prior to that, I was in Chicago. I was in Boston. I'm going to guess that many, if not most of you in this room, came from urban areas. You came here because to some extent you wanted to get away from that, and Sonoma County is bucolic. But Santa Rosa and all of the cities in Sonoma County that have urban growth boundaries, we're going to become a little bit more urban. That's just going to become a part of our reality. We can talk more about that. I didn't want to dwell on these stats, but I did want to highlight one way that the city of Santa Rosa is broadcasting to our residents what's going on. Last year, we spun up a data dashboard site. And you can't make out, this is too small to make out what's going on here. But at the top, oh, thank you for moving that, Jeff. At the top, you can see the website link. You can really just Google Santa Rosa dashboard, and you can go in there and you can get up-to-the-minute reports on housing, on some of our maintenance projects, some of our economic development work. We want to make all of the great things that are happening in Santa Rosa, all the great things that are happening in Santa Rosa as transparent as possible to our residents. So if any of this interests you and you want to keep an eye on it, go to our dashboard. We're trying to publicize this as much as we can. It's a great news story for the city. All right, let's shift gears. I wanted to start with the good news, but now we got to move on to the challenges because our capital improvement program budget and our economic development efforts, they are going in a great direction. And our focus is to keep that going because it's going to be great for the city. But as you've read for at least the last 2 years, Santa Rosa, like a lot of our peers across the state, and again, like half the cities in Sonoma County, we've got some budget headwinds. And I want to just to lead with the awkward truth of it. Last year, we were scheduled to run an $8.4 million deficit. You can see what that is. That's roughly a 5% deficit for given our general fund. This is all general fund, by the way. You can see how that grows. We have a structural deficit issue that is affecting the way that we make decisions for the future in Santa Rosa. It's a fairly serious problem because you see that, we're looking at 10+% of our budget being in, a structural deficit that's roughly 10+% of our budget in a few years. Thankfully, we took action pretty early. Our staff was great in coming to council and saying, hey, we've got a problem here. So starting really 18 months ago, we started making cuts. We cut a significant amount, more than 10 million in one-time funds, and then we made more than $50 million in ongoing annual reductions. We cut 54 positions from the city workforce. These were significant cuts. Would it surprise any of you to know that the city of Santa Rosa, in terms of staff size, is smaller now than it was in 2008? We're about 5% smaller now than we were prior to going into the Great Recession, even though the city is it 15% larger? I think it's around 15% larger. Another stat to keep in the back of your mind is that we have the same number of sworn police officers on the street now as we did in 1996, in spite of the city being about 20% bigger than it was in 1996. So there's a temptation when you hear cities talk about their budgets, there's a temptation to assume that they are running bloated operations. And to be fair, in an organization the size of Santa Rosa, and a 1,300 person, $500 million organization, there are always ways to make savings. But I wanted to mention the relative staff sizes as an indication that the city has made a lot of painful cuts in the past. Our parks department remains about half the size as it was prior to the Great Recession. The easy cuts have been made. And so everything's okay with that alarm? We're good to go. The easy cuts have been made. And so this year, as we go on, we will make additional cuts, but they're going to become progressively more painful. Now, one question that gets asked is, well, why are we in this situation? And there are a few factors. And again, I want to underline at one point here. Santa Rosa is part of a larger statewide trend. California has an idiosyncratic way of funding cities, or how California allows cities to fund themselves. What Santa Rosa is reporting right now and what Santa Rosa is doing is not atypical across the state, again, including folks in our county. California cities fund themselves with sales tax and property tax. If you're in an environment where sales tax is actively declining, and we came in about $6 million under budget this year, and we were under budget last year as well, and the property market is relatively moribund. I mean, you're not seeing a lot of properties change hands in the county or across the state. And expenses are climbing quickly, as they are for everybody, you all see it in your budgets, then what that leads to is a situation where cities are running deficits pretty quickly. The other factor, which we should mention, is that because it often gets asked, is what are the liabilities associated with public pensions? About back in 2013, California underwent a huge pension reform. In addition to that, voters said, hey, we want to make sure that we've got these pension liabilities covered. So cities, you're responsible for making these payments. You need to make them more quickly. Instead of paying out the liabilities over a 50-year period, you got to pay them out over a 30-year period. What this did is very quickly ramp up the cost to cities with good intentions in mind, because we want to make sure that all of our pension liabilities are funded. But the effect on all cities across the state was something akin to suddenly moving from a 30-year mortgage to a 20-year mortgage. If you envision to yourself the impact that would have on your payments, where you're doing a good thing in terms of fund or paying your debts more quickly, but your monthly payments are a lot higher. Likewise, the annual requirements for our payments to the state are significantly higher now than they were 10, 15 years ago as a result of this pension reform. So that's affecting our budgets. It'll be great. We're climbing Pension Mountain right now. We hit the peak in I think about 4 years, and we start to go down the other side of Pension Mountain. This gets to be a little bit of a headwind for us, or a tailwind rather, right? We're paying less every year than right now we're paying more every year. In a few years, we're paying less every year. But we got to get past the peak of Pension Mountain, and then the budgets will lighten up a little bit. So, but in the description for this talk, I think there was the statement that we are in a once in the generation budget crisis. I appreciate that as a way of getting people in to listen. I want to soften that a little bit because we're not in the Great Recession, thankfully. When my wife and I came here from San Francisco back in 2011, we were at the tail end of having the street lights on alternating sides of the street. We are not going back to having the streetlights alternate sides of the street. That is my goal as mayor. Again, thanks to staff, we have a really good plan. And the point of this slide is just to show we've got significant reserves, and those reserves allow us to have a gradual glide path to fiscal sustainability. The numbers that you see here where we run into deficit in a few years, that is if we take no additional action. But obviously we're not going to sit on our hands. We've taken significant action in the last few years. We will be taking more this year and in the years to come, but we've got some significant reserves, so we've got a glide path. So we're not in any kind of state of crisis or desperation, but we are in a state of seriousness. We got to pay attention to the numbers. We have to make cuts where we can, and we have to find additional revenues. And then we have a strategy to get the city back onto fiscal sustainability, and hopefully have that match all the great things going on the economic development side. So in 2026, back to our inflection point, our year of transition, we're going to have some difficult budget discussions this spring. So as you're reading the Press Democrat, you're going to see article after article about study sessions and what cuts is the city going to make and how is the city going to handle its structural deficit. They were bad last year. My hope is that they're a little gentler this year. That was part of the reason that we brought in the interim city manager that we did. She's a CFO by training, and she's working closely with our fiscal staff. And so we think we're going to have a plan that's going to give us a good outcome this spring, even though the conversations will continue to be painful. Some of our budget issues are not just ours and the other cities in the county are a result of the county, the way that the county covers or does not cover expenses related to homeless services. So in the city of Santa Rosa, this is another question that comes up frequently. As Santa Rosa, along with our other cities, put out more money to deal with the very obvious homeless issues that we had, that grew fairly quickly, as in under 10 years, to become a relatively sizable portion of our general fund budget. So if you have a budget of just over 200 million in the general fund, we went from spending less than $1 million back in, I think it was 2017, 2016, to spending somewhere between 8 and 12 million, depending on how you calculate it, in 2025, right? A pretty quick ramp up. We and the other cities in the county are working very closely with the county health department, where most of the county homeless funding comes, to say we have to redistribute these costs. City general funds can't bear this bear this cost anymore. Let's come together as a true county, all the cities in the county, to do this more sustainably. This year, Santa Rosa, aka me, I'm actually chair of the Mayors and Council Members Association, which is the consortium of all the Sonoma County cities. We are in monthly talks with the county on exactly this issue. My hope that this has already led to a little bit of relief for the county, or for Santa Rosa rather, with the county providing additional money for some more services. My hope is that this will bring in more, because we need to have that help. We're also working at the state level to have a better way of distributing online sales tax. Would you believe, how many of you shop on Amazon or other online retailers? I would assume everybody. So would you believe that when you click on buy or ship online, that even though you're clicking on those orders here, none of that sales tax revenue comes to Santa Rosa? I know, that was my response too. So California allowed a system to come into being where the point of sale is determined by the distribution center. So if you're in American Canyon or Vallejo, which is where most of our distributions come through, they are getting your sales tax. I know those cities are very happy with their budgets right now. About 50 cities in the state are very happy. About 450 are not happy. The state realizes that this is not helpful to city budgets, since sales tax is one of is really the major way that cities have to fund themselves. So there's talk about how to redo this, but it's going to be a slow process. But when you read about sales tax declining, know that every time you click on Amazon, some other city gets that sales tax revenue. So it is a shop local. Like, I can't say it more clearly. All right, I'm gonna pause on the last one. And I originally had this in bold and then thought the better of it. California, I say this as a Wisconsinite. I'm from Wisconsin originally. So the California system of government, I've continued to find mesmerizing. I love it. I love being I love being in a local elected official. I love the policy work. But California is a system of government that combines Prop 13, and we're almost at the 50th anniversary. It combines direct democracy, where the voters have to get involved in apparently every choice. It has this really interesting idiosyncratic system. And so what that means is that every few years, cities across the state go out hat in hand to their voters to say, can we tax you yet again? So I discovered this firsthand a couple of years ago when the city had to go out to redo our business tax measure and increase our TOT taxes. And that really was the first time I got my head into this system. And now we are conducting a feasibility study to potentially do it again, to extend our current sales tax measure and potentially increase it. I see the heads nodding. I understand. I understand. This is California. So we want to evaluate the feasibility of some kind of tax increase, because ultimately the city is not going to be able to cut its way out of our budget issues. We have made a lot of cuts. I mean, think about it. We made almost 10% or 8%. We cut 8% of our general fund budget over the course of a year. We're going to be making more cuts this year. All right, we're gonna cut, but you can't cut your way out of the structural deficit that we have without doing things that people really don't like. I mean, think about really significant cuts to public safety, for example, like dozens of police officer positions. That's just not something that the community wants. It's not viable. So we have to find a way to bring in new revenues. That can happen with the state providing us additional ways to bring in revenues. It can happen with the county, sharing revenues to help us with some of our services. Ultimately, we're probably going to have to go to the voters, all of us, including my wife and I, to say, here's the situation. Here's where we are. We have to find some ways to put ourselves back into, onto fiscal stability. So the city wants to be very transparent about that. We're in the midst of a big education campaign right now. Frankly, this discussion is part of that. You're going to be hearing lots more, but I wanted you to hear it at least face to face from me, and I'm sure Councilmember McDonald will be talking about this as well. We're going to be very transparent about this. I'm going to stop there with the fiscal discussion. I will acknowledge that as front and center as the economic development issues and the budget issues are, there are other things happening in the city that I'm sure are top of mind for folks in this group. Very briefly, we are going through a city manager transition. Our Markeisha Smith, who was our city manager for about 4 years, she got picked up by the city of Sacramento. And let's pause on that for a second. that the city of Sacramento, a much larger city, in fact, the largest city manager-led city in California, came to Santa Rosa to get our city manager. Another indication of where Santa Rosa is in the pecking order in the state. Like other large cities look at us. But we have an interim city manager in place. She is great. Her name is Lorianne Farrell. She comes from she was a CFO by training. It is intentional we brought her here because we want all the fiscal expertise that we can get on our budget. But she also has experience with professional sports teams. This takes us back to the United Soccer League and the opportunity to bring possibly a professional sports team here to Santa Rosa. And also she has experience with ballot tax measures. I'll just mention that because that's where we are. ICE and immigration. I'm sure this is a passion point for a lot of people in this room, as it is for our community. A couple of very brief facts, and then if people ask questions, we can talk more about it. It is important to remember that the city of Santa Rosa back in 2016 implemented the indivisible city ordinance. So we essentially reiterated the state regulations that prevent cities from assigning local resources to assist ICE. All right, all cities in California are governed by SB 54. We have our own ordinance that reaffirms that says no, we want to support everybody who's living in our city. We don't want to create divides. We don't want to create disincentives for people to seek out healthcare, to seek out education, to call the police. That does nothing for general public safety. We want to make sure that we are supporting all elements of our community. That remains in place. I'm proud to say that both our county sheriff and our chief of police, John Cregan, in the city, have been doing everything they can to stay in close communication with regional ICE leadership. ICE has been communicative with us. We have had two raids in the city so far, both with a warrant. They gave us the heads up in both occasions. So ICE in Santa Rosa has been professional so far. We want to encourage that. And I will leave it there for now, but yes, this is very much an issue that's front of mind for the city. Oh, I neglected to mention the city of Santa Rosa is party to 3 national lawsuits against the Trump administration. So we can go into more details. We're pushing back in every way that we can. And when you read about San Francisco and Minneapolis and some of these other cities pushing back legally, just assume that Santa Rosa is actually party to those lawsuits. So, and kudos to our legal staff at the city. The United Soccer League. How many soccer fans, professional soccer fans do we have in the room? A few at least. All right. Well, again, we don't need to go into great detail right now, but again, as testament to to the increasing visibility of Santa Rosa in particular on the national scene, the United Soccer League and actually a minor league baseball team approached us to say, we want to bring a team here. So we are in active discussions with the United Soccer League. We are also partnering with the county and the fairgrounds on this conversation. We will see where it goes. My hope is that it leads to some very, very large development in the city that's not just a soccer stadium, but also commercial development, hotel, just a very large development that soccer needs that a soccer stadium would need to sustain itself. So this will continue to be an interesting conversation. And in 2026, we should see developments. So back to the idea that 2026 is a pivotal year. And then I'll end on a negative note. I probably should move that further up the list. It doesn't affect this area so much, but if you talk to other folks in Santa Rosa, FEMA just updated their flood maps. So in the city of Santa Rosa, we went with FEMA's new maps. We went from having something like 8 households, a small number of households in the city that were projected to flood under certain conditions, to now having 2,500 plus households in the city. A similar situation to some of what's gone on with fire insurance, and Oakmonters are familiar with that, right? We have a lot of folks in the city right in Santa Rosa right now who are all of a sudden are inside whom the flood maps indicate are at risk of flooding, and this is affecting their ability, the price they're paying for their insurance, the ability to get insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So again, not so much an issue out here, but as an example of a large issue in the city that we have to deal with. That's one of them. All right, I've thrown a lot at you. Let me see how close I am to time. 11:15, that's not too bad, I think. Right, Judy? I'm going to stop this portion of the presentation. we can bring up the lights and we can go on to discussion. And I'll just say thank you again for the chance to come out here today. And I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I'm sure we have a lot of questions. Just before that, I'm going to mention that Juanita has crocheted these pot stickers for pot. Sorry, correction from wife. Pot holders in honor of Kathy Bricks, and has 8 or 10 of them back there to distribute whoever would like them.
They're free. Please pick one up as you leave. Questions?
Yeah.
So I'm interested in whether, in addition to talking about the money or the amount of funds that are going toward the homeless, if
Yeah.
you are looking at changing the way the homeless are treated, planned for, what kind of programs are there? And then the second question is, you got rid of 54 employees, and I wonder if that was done by attrition or if it was actually cut and people were actually fired, and if so, which departments did they come from?
I'll answer the second first. It was both. It was attrition and unfortunately we had to let staff go. And it was multiple departments. And all of that information can actually be found online if you go back to the budget discussions of that period. So, and again, more difficult discussions to come this spring. So that'll be council's focus for the next 6 months. With the homeless services question that you asked, yes, very much looking at the way that the county generally provides services, including Santa Rosa. We need to be, frankly, the county, and I speak of the county in the broadest sense, the county and the cities and the nonprofits, we need to be more efficient about how we provide those services. And this is being driven by a couple of different things. First, we always should have been more efficient. This gets back to how proud we are of our Italian city-state model in Sonoma County. Every city wants to have its own nonprofit. Every city wants to have its own tiny health and human services department. That model is not working. And it's especially not working with the change in the federal administration. So there are, as you have read in the paper, as you've read in the papers at the federal level, issues around homeless funding, housing money, that's all in play right now. And that's a real wake-up call for our county. So there are very intense discussions at the county level with the cities, with our nonprofit providers to say, okay, people need these services, and all of us as residents want to make sure these services are available because it's a quality of life issue for everybody and just a basic human rights issue for the unhoused. So how do we do it? But we have to do it more efficiently, and so we will be doing things differently. My expectation would be that there would be more continuity from city to city, better partnerships with the county. There's a leadership transition at the county as well, and so that's played into this. But things are moving more quickly than one might expect for how we do a better job with this. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have a comment and then a question. My comment is about Montgomery Village.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think it's just totally impressive now. However, it kind of undermines the philosophy of buying local, because so many of the beautiful stores that are going in are chains. So that's one comment that I have. The question I have is, do you foresee anything in the future about widening Highway 12?
Widening, okay. That's not a softball question. Back to Montgomery Village. It's important. So those are national chains. The sales tax certainly stays here, and the jobs are here, right? And from our local businesses, we all love our local businesses. For me, it's Corix and Treehorn Books down at 4th Street, right? To help our local businesses, to help those brands, or to help those stores, there's an argument that it is helpful to have some of the national brands there to draw traffic, essentially an anchor tenant. So on 4th Street, just as an, imagine, what if there was a Williams Sonoma down right next to Corks and right next to Treehorn? It's better for those stores, right? Yeah, no, that's my dream. That's my dream, actually. Let's pull it out of Sonoma and bring it over here. So again, when you think national, yes, their headquarters are somewhere else, but that jobs and that sales tax is here. So, and there was this, the Highway 12 widening, that's actually a state question. I have not heard anything about Highway 12 widening. Let me actually defer to my colleague. Jill, I've not heard anything. Not yet.
I have a comment on that.
Please.
Sorry. Yeah. The 23-24 Oakmont board did meet with the direction of Steve Spillman with the city when they were revising their master plan for their 15-year master plan. And they have added in the long range 15-year plan to widen Highway 12 to Pythian. So.
All right.
And, we may not be here by the time it happens, but it's in the master plan and has been thought about.
That's good. Iris, thank you for that. That's good for me to know. Frankly, what I want the bike path along Highway 12. All right. One of the larger economic development issues we have in the area is a decline in visitors and a decline in just general tourism. And to have a bike path out there, better bike access throughout a lot of our rural areas, that would be such a draw for our area. So hopefully someday. Next question.
Good morning.
Janice, hello.
Good morning. I'm one of the geeks. Anyway, hi, Mark. I'm glad to see you here today. I have a question, and that's regarding something you've heard me speak about before, and that is there's over $4 million budget for the attorneys in city of Santa Rosa. It's a lot of money. And my question is, what part of that in the lawsuits that happen, even if they're internal lawsuits, does insurance pay for that we're also making settlements out of what? I mean, where do the settlements come from and what's the percentage of what insurance pays? You didn't cover insurance at all, but it's something that I'm just interested about as far as city government. Thank you.
We're doing a deep dive, Janice. Thank you very much. I don't have the exact breakdown off the top of my head. The city of Santa Rosa we are part of an insurance pool with a lot of other municipalities, so that when you read about settlements, oftentimes we're not bearing the full cost of that. That's covered by that insurance pool. But sometimes those costs, or a portion of those costs at least, is coming right out of our general fund. So it's a mix. Yeah, thank you.
So your slides showed 1,000 new dwelling units done and 2,400 in the works.
Yeah.
And the projection for new businesses seem to all be retail and restaurant. So how many of that possible 3,400 units are really geared to affordability for the people working in restaurants and retail? And also, is there anything going on, any discussion or projections about something more sustaining, some kind of manufacturing or something like that coming into Santa Rosa?
Absolutely. I should have caveated the slide with all of the brands as me just putting the fun brands up on the screen. All right. We have lots of employers moving into the area. In fact, I was just talking to one of our commercial brokers recently, where he mentioned that he is not only moving in new smaller businesses, we're talking smaller accounting firms, smaller marketing firms, but the kind of businesses that are really those small firms are really crucial to a community. But there are enough of them coming into the city right now that there are sort of bidding wars for downtown commercial properties, which was absolutely not the case 5 years ago. Right? Like you'd go downtown and our vacancy rate, our commercial real estate vacancy rate was somewhere in the 30% range. We were kind of on that San Francisco trend. That is moving in another direction now because we have new businesses coming in, and that housing, most of the housing, frankly, right now is really aimed at it's the nurses, it's the teachers, it's the early career professionals. That's the housing that we need, especially when you look at the downtown core. When you look at the 8-story Felix right off the square, when you look at some of those other 6-story apartment units, that's who that is for. And with the new developments that are coming downtown, again, we're looking at that. It's that affordable worker housing. That's what we need here, because what we want is we want the young professionals to come here and to stay here. We got to have spaces for the young families too. That's a whole separate presentation, as to how do we get folks with children to come in and help us rebuild our school district. But to your point, it is not just, yes, I like putting up the flashy national brand logos, but there's a larger economic development story than that, and the housing is geared at that larger, the folks who are coming in to staff those other employers.
Hi. Is it working? Okay. I actually lived in San Jose for 58 years and then moved up here. And part of that is when I moved to San Jose, it was a very small town. And now it's a very big town. And
Could you still see the hills around San Jose?
You can.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, the problem is like one of the first things they started getting rid of is police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And they went from 1,400, and at that time, it was considered the safest city in the United States. They went from 1,400 to 700 police officers, and crime got worse.
Mm-hmm.
And they still haven't gone back to the same amount, and yet the city has doubled.
Mm-hmm.
And so it did affect the quality of life there with the crime and all of that. And, I'm just concerned here in Santa Rosa with all the development, and that's what happened in San Jose. They took and they just started building when the .com.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to keep that from happening here in Santa Rosa? Because you're already laying off police officers and city workers and all of that. So I'm just concerned about that.
So it's important to note, thank you for the question. It's important to note first that the cuts to public safety, both police and fire, were very minimal, because we all know why we need strong public safety here. In the city of Santa Rosa, both SRPD is a regional leader. The fire department is a national leader. The last thing we want to do is weaken either one of those departments. We're not going the way that you described in San Jose. And I was a tiny bit misleading in the way I presented our staffing numbers earlier, because what I didn't mention, but what's important to mention, is that the city of Santa Rosa and the Santa Rosa Police Department has invested a lot in technology. So when you read this year that we busted the Chinese gift card theft ring, regional Chinese gift card theft ring, that was because of our flock camera system. When you read how we busted it was the Colombian theft ring that was going after some of our Asian business owners, that was because of the flock cam. That was because of some of our technology systems that we put into place to aid our existing pool of officers. So there's a strong argument that even though we've got the same number of officers for a larger city, we are doing a better job of policing. So in fact, let me just brag about Santa Rosa Police for a second. With the theft gangs that we've caught, I will underline again, they were affecting the entire region. They were down in Vallejo, they were down in Oakland, East Bay, Solano. They got caught up here. So we have criminal elements that are working regionally. They're in all the cities, and they come up here and they get caught because SRPD is great, and they've got tools that allow them to do good things. We need to maintain that. And as your question implies, and frankly, as I look out of this room, I think about 100% of the people would agree with you. Everyone on city and council would agree with you. We are going to maintain our public safety, both in terms of fire and police. We just got to figure out how to do it. This gets back, this is my pitch. This gets back to that ballot tax measure. When you hear it come out and when you see my face printed on that brochure, just know that's where it's coming from, because we do not want to make those public safety cuts. I do not want to make them. But we got to find a way to balance the budget. That's a community decision. How do we maintain the great services that we have, even if it means potentially upping our sales tax a little bit? So yeah.
Mark,
Thank you very much for coming here. I appreciate it to answer questions. I have a question that's really rather local for our council district because we've had this issue with our council member, and you have taken, or the council, the city council at large has taken her off committees. And I'm wondering how we as citizens of this council district will continue to be represented on council issues that affect us if she is not representing us. And also, are citizens here going to be selected for any committees that the city may have for citizens from this district if nobody's there?
Oh, thank you for that question. I assumed that this was when it was gonna come up. So to be clear, Councilmember McDonald is still a part of all council discussions, and she still makes committee appointments, and members of the 4th District are still on all of their committees. Yes, I and my council colleagues did decide to remove her from 3 of the committees. That was a painful decision for on a number of levels. One, given what we have going on in the city, for all the reasons that you just saw, the last thing we wanted to be dealing with is an internal council issue. We just want to be laser focused on the opportunities and the challenges that we have ahead. But again, with the results of the independent legal investigation, council unanimously agreed, other than with Ms. McDonald's vote, that we had to take action. So we did remove her from 3 of those committees. But that committee work is important, but we are backfilling on council, and it will not impact the representation of District 4. One, because we're still a small, yes, we're a big city, but we are a small enough city that every council member pays a lot of attention to what goes on out here. So Oakmont is would be represented regardless, but also Ms. McDonald is weighing in all the relevant policy discussions at council, and that's going to continue.
Hi there. Thank you for being here today. It's been very informative. So what is the city's stance on building into the wildlife interface areas like El Noca now that we know the dangers of doing that?
Good question. All right, I know I can see the landmine there. So the short answer is that WUI developments attract a lot of attention for all the reasons that we know. It is possible to build in some areas or some WUI areas and do so safely. There's been a lot of scrutiny around El Noca and any comparable developments for that reason. It is possible. We have to make sure that we are taking safety into account, but it is possible to have that kind of development, that kind of responsible development that does good things for the community. We just need to make sure that we're paying a lot of attention, which the city certainly is.
To your right.
Over here. Oh, very sorry.
Not having grown up here, you mentioned the economy in Santa Rosa and the sort of things that contributed to that. And you included manufacturing. I wasn't particularly aware how much manufacturing there is. You didn't mention county government. I figured Santa Rosa, being the biggest city in the county, is sort of the center of county government. Is that a contributor to our economy?
Yes. So there are. It's another kind of a landmine. There's some internal political jokes that we could make with that question. Yes, the county administration site with the 800 employees, that's an important part of the local economy. Here, I'll put in a little nudge. If there are any county employees here, it would be nice if the county would keep those employees here in the city rather than moving them to the airport. That's been a robust bit of conversation over the last year. But back to the manufacturing base, I think you're right. I think Santa Rosa residents don't realize how diversified the economy here is here. They know about the tourism, they know about the wine. What they don't see is all the wine adjacent manufacturing that happens here. They don't see some of the defense and tech that happens here. They don't see some of the small business in terms of accounting, in terms of marketing. It's a surprisingly diversified economy in the area, we want to build out some of those sectors. We don't want to be quite as reliant on tourism and agriculture as we are, even though those will always be important. So we've been trying for years to get a few other folks up in the area with some success, and we just want to continue that momentum.
There are lots more questions, but my question, two points. You mentioned you had more of a presentation, do you?
I do not.
Oh,
No.
I misunderstood. Okay, I just want to make sure that we had time for that. So is there any chance that you could get Bezos to build a distribution center right here in this county so we could get the sales tax?
Good. Thank you for asking that. And you will not be surprised to hear you're not the first person who suggested that. There have been conversations in the past, and I hear rumors of current conversations that are percolating. So it's a choice that Santa Rosa, like a lot of cities in the state, is being forced to make right now, where they're looking at their regional colleagues and saying, well, hey, if the state's not going to change the way that it distributes sales tax, do we need to get in on this game? Let's go get ourselves a distribution center. So that is one way for us to approach the situation. And again, there are some conversations that have taken place in the past and are percolating right now. We'll see where they go. So nothing more definite than that.
Colleen?
So just a comment on that. I believe there was a distribution center that was proposed for the Shelville area, which I think is in Sonoma County. And that was shot down for, I don't know what reasons. And therefore it ended up in Vacaville and Fairfield. So, I think messaging very clearly in succinct terms to the voting citizenship that here's what it means to our pocketbooks vis-a-vis future ballot measures would be a really smart thing to do. That's not my question. So I want to bring it down to our day-to-day lived experience. I see that the city council is in charge of transportation and public works. Those of us that live out here drive to Santa Rosa in particular many times along Montgomery, name the street, Europa. It is like an e-ticket ride. So I understand that we call about potholes, which is lovely, but how does the city prioritize getting these main arteries on the high prioritized docket? You know what I'm asking.
I do, and it's a good question. It is this and parking. That is what we talk about. In a sense, already done. You saw the work that happened on Sonoma Ave all the way out to Montgomery Village. This year, we're continuing past Montgomery Village. You saw the street work that was done on Santa Rosa Avenue. You've seen what's happened over in College. Again, the issue with the city is that the city deferred maintenance on streets and other areas of capital improvement for decades. Now we're catching up. And the main arteries are first. You saw some of them this year. You're going to see others you saw some of them last year, rather. You will see more this year and in the years to come. Again, thanks to the voters for authorizing additional funding for these projects. Just stay tuned. We're catching up from a few decades. But yeah, I'm hitting the same potholes. We're all there. Oh, here a partial fix. If you go to My Santa Rosa, there's a My Santa Rosa app. There's a pothole report button, basically. It works. My wife and I have done that. It gets tracked. They come out, they fix the potholes. That's the best way to help in the short term. Longer term, we got to resurface the roads.
It's on. Go ahead.
So, Mr. I hear you. I hear you. I'm on those roads, please.
Mr. Mayor, I thank you for being here and with this presentation. I have a concern about the Maria Carrillo adobe that is right next to Montgomery Village. It's a hot place for houses, but please don't forget the history. That's where Santa Rosa began, and the adobe is there.
Impossible to forget. All right, I'm ready for this one. I was out there. Gay LeBaron and I walked out there together. Okay, so Gay LeBaron is in my ear about this one. It would be, even if the city wanted to forget about it, legally we couldn't. And there are tribal interests there too. So that Carrillo, I wish that the city could have figured out a way to do more 40 years ago when it was in better shape. But we absolutely have to figure out how to preserve that space. It is, well, it is, but we are required to figure out how to preserve that space. And plus that's what people want. That's the political will. At the same time, we want, like, there's so much land there for housing or for some other good use. We got to find a way to develop there. So I'm glad that there's active conversation about what to happen on that site. And I've heard from Larry Carrillo himself and other friends of the Adobe. We'll figure out how to preserve that site and make it more accessible. And right now it's behind an ugly chain link fence, kind of melting in the rain. Right? It's not doing anybody any good right now. We got to figure out how to make that accessible, how to protect it, while at the same time using that terribly underused space there right next to the cathedral. We got to make something good happen there. So stay tuned. Oh, please.
Thank you for your transparency and honesty in your talk today. It's refreshing.
Thank you.
We've been evacuated twice in Oakmont and the areas east of us. And with all the rain and the weeds that are growing up now, and our friends in St. Helena going to send another fire over here. Don't know when.
Or Calistoga. Sure, I hear you.
There has been no provision for county deputy sheriffs, police, or highway patrol to do anything on Highway 12 when the evacuations occur. It's a 2.5-hour ride from Oakmont to downtown to get access to the 101 corridor. It seemed like it would make sense to have police or highway patrol at certain intersections to allow people feeding off the sides along with all the ones that are coming north or south. My idea was to, depending where the fires are, to make Highway 12 one way, going whichever way is away from the fires. Then you've got 2 lanes leaving instead of 1. But I've seen nothing to help us on evacuation.
So thank you for that. I wish that we had our police chief to talk in more detail. What I know that we're trying to do in the city and in the county, and it's really as much county driven, is the early evacuations as a way of preventing what we saw in 2017. So my wife and I also evacuated twice. We're over in Bennett Valley. It took us an hour and a half to get from our house on Summerfield over to Highway 101. In 2017, we were all unprepared. If your second evacuation was a couple years later, we evacuated again. I think it was in 2020. It was much smoother, and that's the whole point of that early evacuation, right? You get folks out of there in an orderly way, so they're not on the road for 2.5 hours, because that's very dangerous. So that's I know the focus has been on just making sure that people were leaving much earlier than we had the chance to do in 2017. So thanks for the feedback. Gabriel, is there another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that gentleman's question because, oh, sorry. I just wanted to piggyback on that here.
Just like that.
Sorry. I wanted to follow up with that question because we're new to Oakmont and Santa Rosa, and we've heard a lot of stories about the Tubbs fire and what that meant to the community. And I'm wondering, in hearing about all these budget cuts, I'm trying not to get worried. What have you, or your current, what is your current position or policies or plans since the Tubbs fire and some of these major fire events to keep us safe? Other than, of course, the evacuation route question that was just asked. If you could
Where'd you
maybe
come in from? Where'd you move here from?
Seattle, Washington.
Oh, excellent. All right. Fewer fires up there. All right.
Right.
Let's put this issue to rest. We are not going to allow public safety to decline. So last year, thanks to Measure H, even though we had cuts in some areas of the fire department, overall we added officers. Okay. This area has been so impacted by fire. The last thing that anybody would allow locally is any kind of decline in the services that we're providing around fire safety. That's not on the table right now. So we need to, if anything, we want to continue to invest, and that's part of our challenge at the city council for both police and fire. But as a newcomer to the region, you're talking to a group of people, including myself, all of us, most of us, I'm sure, witnessed it, had to evacuate, had friends who lost their homes. We are not going to allow public safety to decline. So, and as a final shout out to our fire department, when you read about the fires in Maui, when you read about the fires in Los Angeles, know that those cities and those states were on the phone to us, on the phone to little sleepy Santa Rosa to help them figure out how to do their rebuild. So we had our officers, our city staff over in Maui for weeks and continuing now on the phone to help them. Likewise in LA, the governor's office was on the phone to us saying, all right, Santa Rosa, we're finally willing to listen to you, even though frankly, they didn't listen to us, back in 2017, but they're paying attention now. Please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on the Southeast Greenway, that's a huge new park. What's the timeline on that and who owns the land?
Thank you. The city owns the land. The city is very grateful to Sonoma Land Trust, who we are partnering with closely to find funds that that will allow us to get underway with the intensive planning process this year. Another story in 2026. And so you're going to be seeing a lot with respect to the Southeast Greenway this year. It's a perfect personal point of importance. My wife and I live right up the street from the Greenway. Full disclosure, I pick walnuts so that a friend can make Nicino on the Greenway. So I need better access to that space. So we are underway this year. And the city owns the land. There's nothing in our way. We just got to have the money to develop. And there's a huge amount of interest in getting the pedestrian and the bike paths and the recreation areas into that space. Thanks for asking.
We're having a last announcement here
I
from
asked for
Jeff.
the last word. Thank you. So when Mark came in the door this morning, I said, here's a few of the things I think are going to come from the floor. And I think all but one has come up. So thank you for being somewhat predictable. Biggest thing I want to say is a thank you. Before I do that, I want to address El Noka very briefly. There was a question from the floor about El Noka with regards to building in the wildland-urban interface. Oakmont has been in conversation with El Noka and with the city for longer than I've lived here, way longer than I've lived here. I've been here for 8 years now. And where we're at right now, I think a lot of us feel like is a good place, actually. El Noka is going to get built eventually. I think we have to resign ourselves to that fact. We can't move in and close the door behind us. We've asked for most of the density of El Noka to be closer to the highway, not up against the hillside. We have that. We've asked for the density of housing there to be reduced. We definitely have that. Numbers between 700 and 1,000 units were bandied about at various points in time. I think we're at 277 or 272, something like that right now. So we've been in dialogue with them. We're in a good place. And the last thing to mention, of course, is the emergency access road that will be between Stonebridge and El Noka. It has the potential to actually improve our situation because it will give us direct road access during an emergency out to Melita Road. So that has an evacuation point from Oakmont that doesn't touch Highway 12. That's huge for us. We want to make sure that we don't jeopardize the agreement that's been reached. And it's free. We don't have to pay for that access road. The developer is going to pay for it. So a lot of really good work has been done there. And I want to make sure that we don't throw sand into the gears on that work. Last thing I want to do is if our general manager, Christelle Antone, were here, she would thank you for the wonderful relationship that Oakmont feels like it has with the government of Santa Rosa.
Good.
So thank you for that.
Good. Glad to hear that.
When we pick up the phone to talk to the traffic people or the planning people or our councilman or the mayor's office, those phone calls get answered. We have really good conversations, really good relationships. I left out emergency management and the fire department and of course the police department. So we feel like we're part of the city. We feel like we're a valuable part of the city. Good dialogue, good relationships. So I'll say thank you on behalf of our general manager's office.
Jeff, thank you for saying that. Absolutely. I mean, Oakland's kind of like its own separate city out here, kind of a small city, or Katati-sized city. So we we obviously want to make sure that things are working well here and that people are happy. So thank you, Jeff, for confirming that we've got a good relationship, and we're going to keep that going.
I think you would all agree with me that we are extremely fortunate to have Mark as our mayor.
Right, the Aristotle and Aquinas reading Mark. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your coming to visit us, and we hope you come frequently.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.